To the midday news. The news is live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra. In Kumasi, we are on Love 99.5 FM. On Facebook, we are also on Spotify, myjoyonline.com, and over 30 affiliates across Ghana's 16 regions. We are on Kekeli Radio in Ho, Ganga FM in Jirapa, Kaleo FM in Akachi, Radio Y in Wa, Radio Max in Takrade. This afternoon, flood waters begin to recede in communities within the South municipality of the Greater Accra region, but NADMO is predicting more trouble for residents.
From the Ghana Meteorological Agency, it doesn't look like this is the end of the rain. There will be more rain, so we are ready. And it's also an alert to the communities that get flooding.
We have details of this humanitarian crisis building up as Joy News is learning schools, hospitals and other social amenities remain inaccessible in the affected communities. We are live there. IMF team set to conclude second round of talks focusing on debt sustainability analysis with government, but with a projected end of year GDP to debt ratio of 104%. Experts are warning the fund will reject Ghana's bailout request if serious action is not taken on the country's debt.
IMF would only lend if they are sure that a country's debt is sustainable. And they have a statement on their website, and it says that for those countries that have unsustainable debt, the IMF is precluded from lending.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta and his team are meanwhile preparing to travel with the aim of securing the deal before the 2022 budget, but the minority insists it is simply not feasible.
We will go to Washington with them, continue for another 2 weeks of discussions, and I think we are moving in the right direction.
If the government had stopped their attitude of always creating SPVs for the purposes of hiding public debt, wouldn't have gotten to where we are.
We have details of that, and he's sleeping on the job. He should resign. That's the call of private legal practitioner Martin Pebu to the president, as he says the first gentleman cannot fight illegal mining.
Look, this man is just giving us too much headache. He has checked out. He should just resign, okay? Resign. That's the best thing, because look, he's shown too clearly that he's not competent.
Meanwhile, the president has dismissed suggestions his government is shielding appointees alleged to be involved in the menace from sanctions.
I will not be in a position to protect anybody against whom evidence is massive about their complicity in this matter.
We have sports.
In the latest Joy Sports documentary, Nima Dreams, we look at how recreational sporting facilities can help combat crime.
And we have Tech Thursday much later, where some students of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology have developed a cost-effective instrument to measure temperature and light energy from the sun. That and more in this afternoon's edition of the Midday News with me, Emefa Apawu. This is your home of independent, fearless and credible journalism. This afternoon, there's temporary relief for residents of South municipality who have been displaced by floods since the last 3 days. The National Disaster Management Organization, NADMO, says the water is receding and is likely to be safe for residents to return home later today. But NADMO is warning of more trouble for the people as Ghana Water Company continues to spill off the Wager Dam. We'll take you there shortly. First, though, listen to NADMO Director of Inspectorate, Richard Amuyate, giving an update on its rescue operation.
We were expecting that by this morning
Stanley Mate, earlier this morning, we heard many of the victims make a desperate plea for food and other essentials as they remain out of their homes. Maxwell Agbagba has more.
The Titegu community military truck here helping residents move their
And plans for the future as more rain and spillage is expected.
Yes, Emefa. Although the flood water is subsiding, its devastating effect on the residents is yet to subside. We're beginning to see the roads in many parts of the affected areas, which were previously covered with water. NADMO Director of Inspectorate, Richard Yatu, says they've been told by the Meteo Agency that there's likely going to be more rain. They have also been informed by the Ghana Water Company Limited that it will also start spilling excess water if that happens. But NADMO says it has a contingency plan in place to deal with the situation if the need arises.
We are talking to the Meteorological Agency who have been updating us on the
in the area as a result of the flooding. Maxwell has been interacting with the Electricity Company of Ghana, but thankfully, I have the communications officer of the Accra West Electricity Company of Ghana, Fred Bembil Johnson. We are grateful for your time. So, Fred, can you share with us how your operations have been affected by the floods, especially?
Well, good afternoon to you, and good afternoon to your listeners. Since Tuesday, when the floods came in, what we've had to do as a company is that we've curtailed power supply to some affected communities to make sure that lives and properties are safeguarded. Now, we have done this knowing that indeed once people are not using the power, it means that we are losing some revenue. But at this point in time, what is more paramount to us is to make sure that lives and property are safe. And also, we have some situations where some of our ground-mounted transformers are in flooded areas. So it's difficult to even wheel power from these transformers to various communities which were being set from it.
I know you are trying to safeguard life and property, though, but I don't know if you have an idea how much exactly ECG is losing in terms of revenue over the past few days.
Well, once customers are not using power, or once we are not supplying the power for customers to use, it means that we are losing revenue. But at this point in time, we are not speaking numbers because our main objective now is to ensure that when it is safe, we restore supply to our customers. So probably when all this is over, we'll be able to sit and quantify the losses. But like I said, we have transformers which are in waterlogged areas, and so we need to do technical assessments later to check how much damage has been caused. And then also because customers are not using the power now, it means we are losing some revenue. But for the actual figures, we will know when we do an assessment.
You are not able to give me figures now. I'd accept that. But are you able to give me timelines in terms of when exactly power will be restored?
It's a very fluid situation. So yesterday we were able to restore power to the Wager Old Town area because we realized the water levels there had receded. We are in constant touch with NADMO and other officials on the ground, and so we continuously do assessments. If we realize that there's any area that we can restore supply and to be safe enough, we do so. So it's a constant work we are undertaking, and hopefully, as and when it is safe, we shall be restoring supply to the various communities.
Mr. Johnson, we are grateful. That's Fred Bembil Johnson. He's the communications officer of the Accra West Electricity Company of Ghana. Now, staff of the International Monetary Fund, IMF, are concluding their second round of talks with government on a bailout for the Ghanaian economy. These latest talks, which focused largely on the country's debt stock and a sustainability analysis, is said to be the most important factor in getting a loan from the IMF. Matters have been complicated, with the World Bank classifying Ghana as a high debt-distressed country, projecting the nation's debt to GDP will end 2022 at 104%. Speaking on PM Express Wednesday night, policy risk analyst Dr. Theo Champon said Ghana will not get a penny from the IMF without doing some serious work on its debt.
We do have the IMF in town now, which is doing the debt sustainability analysis, and that's going to feed into the program design numbers, because they would include a number of the things that typically would not include in our debt accounting treatment, including those off-balance sheet transactions, the exposure on the state-owned enterprises. The IMF would only lend if they are sure that a country's debt is sustainable. And they have a statement on their website, which I'd like to quote here again. And it says that, quote, for those countries that have unsustainable debt, the IMF is precluded from lending unless the member takes steps to restore debt sustainability, which includes debt restructuring. And as of last year, when that DSA was done in July, we were already classified as being at high risk of both external and overall debt distress. So given where we are now with the extra deficit and the extra spending, I personally won't be surprised if we move up into the next category of already being in debt distress, which then means that we would have to fundamentally commence a debt restructuring exercise before accessing the IMF financing.
Meanwhile, Minority spokesperson on finance, Dr. Arthur Forson, says government has been caught pants down after hiding debt to conceal the actual state of Ghana's indebtedness.
If the government had decided to correct, their attitude of hiding public debt wouldn't have gotten to where we are getting to. If the government had stopped their attitude of always creating SPVs for the purposes of hiding public debt, even though it is the central government that is actually having the obligation of servicing those debts, certainly wouldn't have gotten to where we are. One important point we need to understand is that there's difference between the debt stock itself and the debt sustainability analysis. While the debt stock talks about the actual debt you owe, the DSA deals with going forward, including policies that you will implement in the medium term. So the two are different. It is a fact that the Sino-Hydro is a public debt. They decided to exclude it. Today, Ghana's debt to obligation to Sino-Hydro is due next year, June. Where's the bauxite? Where is the bauxite? How are we going to pay for that debt? Remember, the bauxite revenues are actually part of the tax revenue. So if you are using bauxite revenue to service a debt, it is part of the central government obligation. It is government attitude that has gotten us there. No government in the last few, since 1992, this republic has decided to hide debt in the magnitude that we are seeing now. It has become the stock in trade of this administration. Let's call them out.
That's Dr. Atufosen. We are learning this afternoon that Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will lead a team of Ghanaian negotiators to the IMF headquarters in Washington for 2 weeks in a bid to fast-track the process and get a deal before the 2023 budget is presented. He's been speaking to the media after paying a visit to the Long Room at the Tema Port in the Greater Accra region.
The mission will close
Kofi J. Minta joining us in the studio for more analysis on this. Kofi, what impact does an unsustainable debt level have on a country's negotiations with the IMF for a bailout?
Request financial support from the IMF. The fund assesses whether the country's policies are consistent with debt sustainability. It is important to note that the DSA in itself is forward-looking and it considers steps being taken by the member to ensure sustainability over the medium term. Now, this is the condition. In cases where a country's debt is assessed as unsustainable, the IMF is prevented from providing financial support unless the member takes steps to restore debt sustainability, including by seeking a debt restructuring from its creditors.
Well, talking about the debt restructuring analysis that the DSA that you've been talking about, what do we know so far? Has government taken any decision to go local or external?
What we know is that government is currently considering restructuring its domestic debt, which is pegged at 190.1 billion Ghana cedis by the Bank of Ghana as at June ending 2022. It is also important to note that component of our debt currently is about 51.7% external and 48.3% domestic. But it is certain that it is easier talking to domestic creditors within a short period of time than foreign debt holders. Hence, government decision to go domestic. Emefa.
Thank you very much, Kofi J. Minta. Now on to our campaign, No to Galamsey. That's the hashtag. You need to join the conversation on all our social media platforms. And this afternoon, a private legal practitioner, Martin Pebu, is asking President Akufo-Addo to resign, as he says he cannot fulfill his promises of stopping illegal mining. The issue of Galamsey has been topical as a Joy News documentary revealed the devastating effects of the act on the country's water bodies. Some groups have suggested the president, who has always said he will put his presidency on the line to fight the menace, cannot fulfill that promise. Others have also accused him and his government of shielding appointees set to be engaged in illegal mining from sanctions. Well, the president has been speaking on that. We'll hear from him shortly. But here's what the president has been saying. He says it's not true.
Cannot be. The president at the national level is waging a war against Galamsey, and you at the local level, my representatives, are compromising that fight. That cannot work. I'm not here to threaten anybody. But I want you to know that this is a struggle that I take very seriously. And I will not be in a position to protect anybody against whom evidence is masked about their complicity in this matter.
Well, according to Mr. Apawu, citizens are only reacting to the assurances of the president. He asked the president must step down.
Is when the president says if accusations are made, I find it very laughable. One, before he came, he said he will use the ANAS principle. So from the way people are complaining over all this months, where is the ANAS principle he promised? So they will do undercover investigations. So all this while he's not aware. Number two, look, in every part of Ghana, you see the National Investigative Bureau. They have officers all over. So as you are walking around, he's also walking in the society and watching. So he knows, look, the president can't say that he's not being briefed about this thing. He's just sleeping on the job. I think, look, President Kufuor, I don't know how many times we have to call on him. He just has to resign. Look.
On his party co-chair of the Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, Dr. Steve Mantiel says this is not the time for plenty talk, but rather for swift, impactful and stern decision to deal with illegal mining. He spoke with Benjamin Akakbo on the AM show.
You tackle the problem head on and take on the people who are broke with power to deal with the problem. You don't go placating them the way the president sought to do yesterday. And I keep saying that, look, the day a chief is arrested for complicity in mining and put behind bars, all chiefs in this country will sit up. The day an MMDC is removed from office, put before the law, and put behind bars, all MMDC would be up to the task. They will actually live up to expectations. So if all we are going to do is to be kind of deploying log at this time, then I beg to say that we have long gone past that phase. We are actually at a phase that requires resolute action, resolute response, and that is why I agree with Occupy Ghana when they call for a state of emergency.
Meanwhile, former Lands Minister Inusa Fuseni says President Akufo's seemingly renewed interest in fighting Galamsey is not innovative.
There's no word which is comforting or no sentence that is comforting and reassuring in the statement made by His Excellency the President in Kumasi. In fact, it's just a regurgitation of what he has been saying. He's not said anything new, nothing absolutely new about what he's going to do. He's not being innovative in the fight against illegal small-scale mining.
Still on our Galamsey fight, I take you to the Ashanti region where an assistant headmaster of Mpatatia Junior High School in the Amansie South District, Akwesi Anane, has died after falling into a Galamsey pit. The incident happened on Tuesday. Reports indicate that he had visited his mining concession in the late hours of Tuesday. There's more.
The teacher is a miner and he sponsors people to work for him whenever he is at school. Due to the fight against illegal mining, he has packed out of the site. Sometimes they have to go to ensure that no one steals from the site or mine your concession. He was on such rounds. Since it was late, he missed his step and fell into a pit. The whole community is sad because the teacher has helped a lot of people in terms of education.
That's the Assembly member for Inwineso electoral area, George Duku Echampong, explaining that the teacher regularly visits his concession. His body, we are told, has been deposited at St. Martin's Hospital at Agroyusum for autopsy and preservation. Taking us on a quick break here on the Midday News. We're live on Joy 99.7 FM, also on Love 99.5 FM in Kumasi. We've been talking about the floodwaters beginning to recede in communities within the South municipality of the Greater Accra region, but NADMO is predicting more trouble for residents. We touch base with the IMF negotiations, and the team is set to conclude second round of talks focusing on debt sustainability analysis with government. But with the projected end-of-year GDP to debt ratio of 104%, experts are warning the fund will reject Ghana's bailout request if serious action is not taken on the country's debt. When we return, we have sports, and then we have Tech Thursday, where some students of the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology have developed a cost-effective instrument to measure temperature and light energy from the sun.
I bet you thought you've seen it all. You must have thought you've watched it all. Gomorrah is a new exciting series about the conflict that rises between the wealthy and the poor. Watch Gomorrah exclusively on Aquaba Magic, DSTV channel 150, Go TV channel 101, and Aquaba Magic Ebusian DSTV channel 149 and Go TV channel 108. With as little as 50 Ghana cedis on DSTV access and 25 Ghana cedis on Go TV value. Gomorrah. Dane?
Thanks for staying with us. Let's do sports. Fent is here.
Yep, and the former communications director for the Ghana Football Association, Ibrahim Sani Dara, believes a lot of crime in Nima will be reduced once recreational facilities are provided in the area. He was speaking in Nima Dreams, a Joy Sports feature highlighting the absence of football pitches in Nima and its effect on talent production. The community has produced the likes of Mohamed Polo and recently Kudus Mohammed, and the former BBC broadcast journalist is described as problematic. The impact public encroachment of football fields is have on the youth.
There are other places within Nima, for instance, this place, downside, towards Michigan, towards the Naza Bridge, towards the Berlin Bridge. What about the children there? Where can they play? So our city authorities must start to think. You worry that there's a lot of crime here. I was out of the country when I heard a big fight near the big gutter. Do you think if we had created avenues for these children to play, to exhibit their talent and become good footballers, they'll be engaged in this? Our leaders should not only think about, trying to arrest people because they are criminals. They should also think about preventative measures where we can provide opportunities for young people to have hope in life, and football can give a lot of hope.
Ibrahim Sani Dara there. Nima Dreams is currently airing across multimedia platforms.
Well, Chief Justice Kwesi Enin-Yeboah is assuring the Ghanaian citizenry of his commitment to uphold the integrity of the judiciary. He says his administration is devoted to delivering quality justice services to Ghanaians. There's more in this report by Clinton Yeboah. Read to you.
The Chief Justice was addressing the first quadrennial Delegates Congress of the Senior Staff Association of Judiciary Service of Ghana after it broke away from the Judicial Service Staff Association of Ghana in 2018. The association includes court clerks, interpreters, registrars, and bailiffs. The 5-day conference is themed Promoting Efficiency in Justice Delivery, the Role of Staff and Management.
I wish to draw your attention to the fact that our services constitute public goods, and as staff of the judicial service, you cannot remain insular and detached from the regular accountability demands made of the judiciary. In other words, you need to understand from the outset that as public entities, I am referring to both the judiciary and judicial service, the general public have a stake in terms of our competency, efficiency, and institutional integrity. Therefore, as Chief Justice, and I speak for management too, I welcome constructive dialogue and informed suggestions that have the potential of endangering growth and efficiency.
Chief Justice Enin-Yeboah, time for Tech Thursday, and some students at the Mechanical Engineering Department of the KNUST have developed a relatively cost-effective digital instrument for measuring temperature of the surroundings and light energy from the sun. Emmanuel Bright Kweku has more.
Andy Abekuse explains the motive for the instrument.
We realize that in Ghana, it's a challenge for students in tertiary and secondary institutions to have access to instruments that is able to measure parameters such as solar irradiance, temperature, humidity, and airflow.
The user-friendly and multi-metric prototype instrument was developed employing a solar cell and other locally acquired components.
The DH11 senses the ambient temperature and the PV cell senses the solar irradiance. These signals are in the form of analog, and they are being converted from analog to digital by the help of microcontrollers. So these digital signals now serve as the output in the form of temperature readings in degrees Celsius and irradiance readings in watts per meter squared.
One may like to know what's the difference between our instruments and the already existing ones. For our instrument, it's cost effective, it's easy to operate, it's resistant to corrosion, and it's accessible.
Well, just before we go, women are often advised to feel their breasts regularly as a way of early detection of lumps, which may be a sign of breast cancer. But what if this particular advice is coming from your chief? You would have no option but to follow his directive. That's exactly what Paramount Chief of TEPA in the Ashanti region, Nana Edusei Achwenewa Ampim the First did. Listen to his advice.
I want to plead with our women to allow their husbands and their people to hold their breasts, as it will help them to know whether or not there's a lump.
And that's how we end today's edition of the Midday News on Joy 99.7 FM. There's more news when you log on to myjoyonline.com. You can read more stories there. Ghana's debt to GDP is not properly accounted for. That's at Toforson. Black Sheriff releases the villain I never was. You want to hear that. I am Emefa Apawu. Have a good afternoon.